Welcome to Motherhood Aligned and Assigned, where we help guide mothers from symptoms to solutions.
We're Dr. Serena Coffman and Dr. Veronica Schiltz, nervous system specialists helping families discover the missing link in their wellness journey.
Join us as we translate complex health challenges into simple, actionable solutions for you and your children.
Because your family deserves to thrive,
not just survive. We obviously don't know when you're watching this, but if you happen to come across our podcast or even our YouTube at 2 a.m., I'm going to guess this is especially for you. But if you are that kind of person who wakes up in the middle of the night and is scrolling, trying to figure out what you should do, especially when you're just feeling stressed out, and at this point in time, you're usually carrying a baby. I don't know. You might not be carrying a baby, but this episode is going to be about prenatal stress. And so you're pregnant right now, scrolling at 2 a.m., and you are feeling anxious. Maybe your baby's already here, struggling with colic, reflux, sleep issues, or sensory challenges. And this episode is going to change how you thought you knew about where these problems actually begin. So what most parents never hear is that the modern pregnancy experience, with the constant monitoring, the testing, the fear-based messaging, the disempowerment, we're just going to call it what it is, creates chronic stress that doesn't just affect you. It directly programs your baby's developing nervous system. So this is not about guilt. This is about understanding what happened and where the stress started accumulating so you can understand what your child actually needs instead of sitting here listening to a crying baby all night long. Mm-hmm. So this episode is for maybe prenatal or postnatal moms who felt stressed, anxious, or overwhelmed during pregnancy or are feeling those things during pregnancy. This is for parents whose baby struggles with colic, reflux, sleep, or sensory issues, especially those first-time parents, right? It's if you're sitting here wondering, how much is too much for a baby crying, you belong on this episode. And then families dealing with the developmental delays or behavioral challenges, or parents who sense something deeper is going on but can't quite put their finger on it because the pediatrician is no, everything's fine on our end. So if you've ever wondered, did my stress affect my baby? This conversation is for you.
Let's zoom out for a second. And I want to take a look at our great-grandmother's prenatal experience versus ours. And right off the bat, when I'm thinking about this, my husband would say, well, people just died. They just died.
My mom says that too.
It's
they would have made it this far.
Well, people died when doctors did autopsies and then went straight into delivering a baby and created sepsis and those kinds of things. There is that. And then also,
technically, that's also invasive.
Yeah, lots of people died when we didn't understand hygiene.
Sanitation.
And sanitation. And then also, when there are, we've prevented a lot of mortality. When a woman is high risk, we know how to help that woman and save the baby and mom. We have there, no doubt. But just...
Can I say something completely unhinged? Because I literally just said this the other day.
Sure, yeah.
My mom made that comment too of we used to just die back then. And I was we also want to look at the quality of life though, right? Yes, we live a little longer these days, but I know several people who get to the last 20 years of life who aren't doing great. So just I think it's important that we don't just look at the longevity of life, but also the quality of life.
Yeah.
And I feel the quality of life has gone down.
Mm-hmm. I could see that. Because we don't move as much, we don't eat as well, we don't live with our family, and so we're just not as cognitively sharp, taking care of grandbabies, those kinds of things.
And the medication is avoiding the problem as to why we're not doing those things, right? ADHD, anxiety med, all that stuff. So not to, just keep that in mind.
And the life expectancy number for 100 years ago or 200 years ago was a lot lower because of infant mortality. I don't know why exactly. I could look into this a little bit more. It was a lot lower. The average life expectancy was a lot lower because of infant death. But people were living into their 90s commonly, right?
Yeah.
So, anywho.
Tangent.
Great-grandma, she's pregnant. She may have had 4 or 5 prenatal visits during her entire pregnancy. So no routine ultrasounds, no genetic screenings, no glucose challenges. And now today, in comparison, we're having 12 to 15 routine visits if you're under standard medical OB care. Multiple ultrasounds, multiple blood tests, glucose, non-stress tests, high-risk labels, all these things. So while we're monitoring, this monitoring has its benefits, the message often sounds like something could be wrong at any time.
Hmm.
Right. And then we're layering that with work stress. Lots of mamas are working until 38 weeks, 40 weeks. Financial stress, social pressure, the constant like research spiral on Dr. Google. I'll add in the constant stressors of social media, creating expectations to be the perfect mom.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a lot of stress that our great-grandmother did not have.
Mm-hmm.
There was a 2017 study published in Development and Psychopathology that followed mothers and children from pregnancy through age 6. And they found that babies born to mothers with high prenatal stress had nervous systems that were 22% more reactive at 6 months old. And they also showed 8% lower self-regulation capacity, increased risk for anxiety, depression, behavioral challenges as they grew. So it's just like before they're even self-regulating teenagers and adults, like these are already way more stressed kiddos.
Mm-hmm.
Because the biology and physiology and neurology of development is that in utero, our babies are mirroring our nervous systems to know how to develop, so their nervous system knows what to do and what kind of environment it's going to come into, right? So that's not me saying drop all your appointments and you can delete
Rebirth it up.
Rebirth it up. No, not necessarily. Do you, honestly.
I mean, yeah. Whatever you, yeah. This is not us recommending.
I'll say, like, my midwife appointments I had one ultrasound at 20 weeks. I had a visit at first, like, for my first pregnancy, I was, like, insulted. I was like, you don't want to see me until 10 weeks?
Like 12 weeks.
12 weeks? I was like, but then I realized, and this is what I told them, I was like, the doctor does not grow your baby. You know, like, going to the doctor is not going to guarantee that you are growing a baby right. Your body knows how to grow a baby. It's been doing that for centuries. Well, not yours specifically, unless you believe in reincarnation. I don't know.
Anyway. We're getting spicy.
Yeah.
I guess maybe I'm getting spicy today.
And then another thing I want to say is all of these things that we're testing for all the time, the ultrasounds and the blood panels and the glucose, for all of these diseases we can develop in pregnancy, like preeclampsia, gestational diabetes, those things, they all have a common link, by the way, which is oxidative stress, which is stress. So that's like, that might be spicy in itself, of whittling everything down to stress.
Yeah, and it's like we have these physiological processes and I go back to this time and time again before I go into like the physiological processes. What I'm not saying, because I feel like whenever the average person, if you have not been listening for the last couple of episodes, you might need this reminder of like, we are not saying stress is the problem. Right, because we listed a lot of things, and it's like we're human, right? Like that's just part of living, right? Of being a human. What we want to hit on is the accumulation of stress, unprocessed stress, being stored in the nervous system that can be linked to all of these other things. Stress isn't the problem. We're not going to be like, quit your job. We're not going to be like, we're not going to tell you to do anything different in your lifestyle. Your body might. I mean, I've had several people where it's like, are we sure we want to keep doing that? But what we want to offer you is that the opportunity to relieve stress from the body and have choices, right? Are we making these choices out of stress mode and survival? Or are we making these choices out of thriving? And so just keep that in mind. It's like, I feel like every time I talk to a new patient about stress, it's like, well, then should I quit my job and go live in a hole? And it's like, that would also be stressful. So like, no, so just hear that. And then we get into the physiological processes of how mom communicates to baby. We know as a society that that's through the umbilical cord, right? We know that umbilical cord is vital for nutrient delivery, but it's also the neurological connection between mom and baby. So it carries biochemical and neurological signals from your nervous system to your baby's developing nervous system. So what that means is that your stress blueprint is your baby's stress blueprint. And I talk about this time and time again. That's not a bad thing. That's a very good thing. That there's various reasons for that, because that is how we connect, right, to our babies. That is how we communicate to our babies. That's how the baby knows what environment it's going to be introduced into. Because if mom is feeling a certain way, baby's going to learn how to navigate its environment through the way mom feels. So if mom is processing her stress and feels more regulated, then baby's going to feel the same. I don't know. I feel like we've talked about this before. Most babies with colic also have mothers who are extremely anxious. And, you know, you can get to the point where the baby releases the stress, but it might come back if mom's stress is still there and still showing baby, okay, here's how we respond to stress around us and here's how we don't. We just want to have the choice on how we're expressing stress and what we teach to our kids, because if we don't consciously make that choice and if we're not being conscious about the stress in our body, then the body's going to make the choice for us. And it's always going to choose survival over thriving.
Mm-hmm. When you say the colic can resolve, are you saying like with care, if we unwind that baby's nervous system, remove interference, and then mom is still dysregulated, we can see other signs of stress creep back in because they're still mirroring mom?
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you for correcting that. Yes. Yep.
Not correcting, just getting details. Yeah.
Yeah. Completing that thought.
Yeah, because we don't, usually colic just doesn't go away.
Yeah.
Usually, right? It usually kind of morphs and develops into their next developmentally appropriate phase of how they wave red flags in their nervous system.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, so colic turns into, constipation, and then the constipation turns into delayed milestones, and then milestones turn into, behavioral struggles, and then anxiety. Yeah, so yes, Dr. Serena brings up a very good point. It's not, I guess in an example I was talking about, like mom has brought baby into the office to get scanned, to get under care, and baby's feeling great. And then we see that things keep creeping back up because mom herself needs to get under care as well. Because as long as mom's nervous system is primed and prepped for survival, so is baby's. For like a long time. I feel like it's quite a while before, I don't remember what like the actual numbers are, but I feel like even in my own experience, it's like until like 4. I feel like you share a pretty close nervous system with your baby until like 4. And then all of a sudden now you need to use your nervous system to calm theirs down because it's very separate from yours.
Yeah. Yeah, I can see that. I have a 2 and a 4-year-old who's she's almost 5. And if I'm like feeling wound up and stressed, we just don't have as good of a day.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And so I have to like step back.
Mm-hmm.
Say a little prayer,
and
then we can have a better day. It's usually me. Yeah,
I'm the problem.
Yeah, it's like, why aren't we having fun? Oh, it's me. Should we dive into more of the umbilical cord anatomy, physiology?
Sure.
Yeah. Right. So like Dr. Veronica was saying, a lot of us know umbilical cord, and we think of like blood and nutrient delivery. And so it's more than a feeding tube. The umbilical cord is a communication cable. So it's carrying biochemical and neurological signals from your nervous system to your baby's developing nervous system. So if your body's constantly in fight or flight mode, these signals are what's being transferred, right? That's a lot of how the baby is going to receive your stress. I think there's more to it than just like this chemical, physiological component, but that's what we can measure and know is that your stress hormones like cortisol show up in baby's placenta and bloodstream when they're elevated, and we can measure those differences too between like moms who are less stressed and then moms who are really stressed. That's why it's important.
So, yes, we've gone through, like, the physiology of the placenta, and I just want to talk about, like, a little bit of brain health, because I do feel like there's sometimes people are still like, what does that have to do with the brain, right? Like, chiropractic, nervous system, please. I'm confused. Why are we talking about that? So, when we have prenatal stress, it impacts specific brain region. So, you've got your amygdala, which is, like, I like to call the caveman part of your brain, right? Very primal, primitive. And it's why babies startle easily. So if the amygdala is overactive, babies might be struggling to calm down, and it will appear as if they have high needs. So these are like your Velcro babies. Now, I will say there is a sense of them like learning how to not be one with mom, but there is a difference between that like bonding and separation and like full on
anxiety.
Yeah, in a baby, right? Yeah. It's like the baby feels scared to not be around mom versus just like uncomfortable, right? So when that amygdala is overactive, we see that with baby. This is when it's like no matter what you do, even if you're holding the baby close to you, they can't soothe themselves, right? They can't even co-regulate with you. This is when we start to see issues. Like a baby who is just kind of going through that separation phase will not love being away from mom, but then when mom shows up, they should be able to kind of regulate back down. These babies with high overactive amygdalas are the ones who, even when mom comes back, babies can't get themselves to go from like, I was really upset you left and now I'm still upset and I can't figure out how to get out of being upset, if that makes sense. So that's how you can tell like a baby who's just like developmentally going through it and a baby who's like really struggling to kind of find that like that calming, okay, mom's here, I can calm down. And then you got your hippocampus. So the learning and emotional regulation capacity can be reduced if the hippocampus is not working properly. This is like your memory center, right? So the hippocampus is going to essentially be like, hey, remember that time we did that one thing? We either loved it or we hated it. And so when your amygdala is overactive, your hippocampus automatically labels experiences as negative, right? It's like, well, I'm upset, so it must be that my environment made me upset, so I don't like this environment. So that's what the hippocampus is. Then we got our prefrontal cortex. I call this the mom of the brain. So this prefrontal cortex is one of our like best processors and analyzers and integrators. So impulse control and emotional processing becomes harder when our prefrontal cortex is underworking, right? So the amygdala and hippocampus, well, I should say the amygdala overworks in this scenario. The hippocampus is labeling everything as dangerous. Your prefrontal cortex is basically like going on vacation. It's like, we don't know what's going on here. Then we got the vagus nerve, which is when the vagus nerve is not working properly, which usually happens when the amygdala is overworking. You have low tone, and this affects digestion, sleep, heart rate variability, and immune regulation. So think like how often your baby is getting sick. So neurotransmitter systems like serotonin and dopamine, I feel like we all know those are like our happy hormones, establish stress reactive baselines, and your baby can enter the world already primed for sympathetic dominance if that vagus nerve is down regulated. Now, I will say the amygdala, hippocampus, and prefrontal cortex, I feel like is more of like your like emotional, maybe chemical stress in the body. Like those things are going to be overactive or underactive because of the stress and the chemicals and the environment of mom. The vagus nerve, though, can also be influenced by that, but that's going to be one of our physical, the thing that really kind of downregulates from the physical stress of the birth process, right? Whether that's if we had, forceps or we had C-section or like that, the vagus nerve is kind of affected when we have more of that physical stress. As far as what I've seen, I mean, of all of them are affected by the 3 T's, right? The physical, the chemical, emotional stress. But at least that's what I'm kind of seeing because that vagus nerve is right next to that C2. Threads through the C2, I should say. That is when physical stress is added on top of prenatal stress. That's when we're going to see like the quad effect of the amygdala, the hippocampus, the prefrontal cortex, and the vagus nerve. Would you agree with that? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah, because some people are like, well, does my baby even have a prefrontal cortex yet? It's like it's there. It's like
does it just like appear?
Well, it's like very underdeveloped. Yeah. And so does it have a safe environment and like optimal capacity to develop as they get to like mid-20s, it seems now. It's like they keep pushing it back. So you might be asking yourself, like, okay, what do I do with my stress? You've given me all the reasons I have stress. You've told me what happens when there's stress. And so what people usually do when they've experienced prenatal stress and now they see their child experiencing troubles digesting, sleep, emotional regulation, fighting infections constantly. They can't settle those kinds of things. Families are often trying, okay, let's change the diet. If they can't poop, let's like push these things. Supplements, sleep training, behavioral therapy, occupational therapy, and all these things can help. But if the foundation of the nervous system dysfunction isn't addressed, it's like remodeling a house with a cracked foundation. And we've talked about that before, right? All these other therapies are wonderful, but they're operating on a really shaky, dysregulated nervous system. right? And so our answer is we can address stress through neurologically focused chiropractic care, which is really gentle for pregnancy and safe for kids. That's like a question I get all the time of like, you can adjust my baby? Yes. It's so different than your TikTok rackham and crackham sensationalism thing, right? So what we do first though is like, let's see what your nervous system is doing. And we have 3 scans that can tell us what's going on, right? We have insight scans that can measure, is your nervous system stuck in fight or flight? Or are you adaptable? Is it suppressed? Are you really exhausted and fatigued and worn out and you can't even push on the gas pedal? Right, so what's your adaptability look like? And where are you holding on to that stress in your body? Which can tell us how to most optimally unwind what's going on, right? So when interference is removed, when we remove all of that noise and dis-ease in your system, we can restore balance to your brain because we can tell your brain that it's safe and it doesn't have to be operating in that caveman dad brain mode, and it can tap into that mom of the brain. Mm-hmm. And you can do this in pregnancy, right? If you're feeling like you're really overwhelmed right now in pregnancy and struggling with digestion and sleep, and you're starting to develop warning signs of preeclampsia and gestational diabetes, we can regulate your nervous system now, and that can serve your baby even after they're born, right? And if it's your baby who's struggling, let's get them scanned.
Yeah, I want to hit on Dr. Serena's was like, this is not your normal rackham crackham chiropractic for kids. But I also want you to know that we take that same approach with everyone, right? Like, I guarantee you the kind of chiropractic you experience in our offices is going to be very different than most streamlined chiropractic because we're never a rackham crackham office, right? So I feel like if a parent is ever like, is this safe for my kid? There's a part of them that's like, I don't really think I want to receive something like that, so why would I have my kid do it? And that's fair. Some of the techniques I've seen out there make me cringe, and I know what they're doing, right? So, like, I totally understand that fear. But I always like to tell people, 1, I can adapt how I approach your care. So it's very, very communicative. It's very, very, like, if you don't like how this was performed, or if you don't like a certain adjustment, we can work around it for the most part, especially as I work on building trust with you and get it to know your body. And it's a very customized, very gentle, very specific approach special to you. How I adjust you is very different from how I adjust someone else, just depending on your tone, your comfortability, your body type, your build, your, nervous system patterns. And, we approach you where you're at. And so for the mom who's listening to this, who is stressed out, who is anxious, and doesn't really want someone like yanking and cracking on her neck, most likely you have an overactivity that the scans are going to pick up, and we're not going to be doing that anyways, right? So just know that, like, it's a very, very different style of chiropractic. Still chiropractic. All chiropractic is great, but we still take a different approach to meet your body with where it's at instead of adding more stress to it through an adjustment.
And something that information I take for granted, this is like the simplest thing. Some women are like, well, I can't get adjusted because of my big belly. So how would I even do that? It's like, oh, we have pillows. We have little donut pillows that you can lay on your belly and not put pressure on your belly so you can get adjusted, which... Yeah, and like to me, that's like obviously, but some women are like, "Oh, this is game changing," and it's like their favorite part, actually.
Yeah, you get to lay face down on your on your belly. It's like the only time you get to do that. Go ahead and click the link in our bio if you are interested in learning more about the kind of chiropractic that we deliver, the nervous system scans that we give, and then also if you have questions. Right, I'm pretty sure we both do free consults. Yeah, so you can give us a call and be like, hey, I'm not sure if this office is right for me. And we will literally walk you through every step of the way. So I said click the link in our bio. There is no bio on a podcast. So go ahead and go to the show notes. You can either go to the show notes. You can send us a DM if you found this on Instagram, comment below, or you can schedule directly with Dr. Serena at Vessel Chiropractic in Boise, Idaho, or me, Dr. Veronica, at Haven Health Chiropractic in Ankeny, Iowa. And our team would love to help you understand what's really going on and what you can truly do about it. If you are not in either of those locations, Iowa or Idaho, I-states, go ahead and I think in the show notes we also have the PX Docs directory, so you can find a PX Doc near you, and we all are trained and certified by the same guy, right? So we all have the same level and standard of care, and you will be very taken care of no matter where you go.
I'll pray us out. Dear Lord, thank you for the gift you've given us to help create life. Thank you for allowing us to be the shepherds for our children and guiding them into everything they will do in life, including having a regulated nervous system, if we have the opportunity to do that really well. In your name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you for joining us on Motherhood Aligned and Assigned.
We hope today's episode helped you connect the dots in your family's health journey.
Remember, this is where nervous system health meets motherhood wisdom.
Until next time, we're Dr. Veronica Schiltz.
And Dr. Serena Coffman, supporting you as you nurture your family's well-being.
Because when you're aligned, everyone thrives.